An oil tanker for you.
There's something about anime poses. You know the ones. Goku charging up to blow up your zip code, L hunched over with his dogs out, or of course, Jojo, Jojo, Jojo. Anime is an art in motion, but so many of its most powerful moments are frozen in time. Somehow anime, maybe more than any other medium, has made posing an art form all on its own. And look, other mediums have their icons too, but anime seems to go a step further and bake it into the storytelling. Like when I say the All Might pose, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you watch My Hero, him standing with his fist in the air like that means something. In anime, oftentimes a pose isn't just a snapshot, it's a statement. Now, there's a whole lot behind that. Partially, that anime comes from manga, a static medium that needs to make the most of every panel. Partially, influences from centuries of Japanese visual storytelling. Think traditional samurai and woodblock prints, martial arts, kabuki theater. As a matter of fact, kabuki has a word for the kind of climactic poses that define moments. Mie. Big, dramatic pauses where the actor strikes a bold pose and holds it for a few seconds. It's theatrical and stylized and meant to be remembered. Stuff like that, plus Western traditions of spectacle and imagery, bleeds into anime's visual storytelling, where a pose can immortalize a moment. What is it about these poses, though, that makes them so memorable in the first place? Let's talk about the key ingredients: structure, identity, and framing. To make a good pose, you need to start from a good base. Even if you're going to stretch and twist the rules for most characters, you can't escape basic anatomy. So you get into questions like, where's their center of gravity? How's their weight distributed? What's the tension like in their arms or legs? I mentioned Mie before as a structure anime borrows from, but there's also the ancient Greek tradition of posing that influenced Western art. Take a peek at these two sculptures. Obviously this one looks more lifelike, which is due to an idea called contrapposto. Take another look here at Michelangelo's David. Notice how his weight is shifted on one leg to make him just a little naturally asymmetrical. That's contrapposto, or counterpose. Statues like this were really the first time in Western art where the human body could speak emotionally. And you can trace that kind of physical language through time, with Renaissance paintings to Disney animation to fashion modeling. This philosophy is a bit different from the power poses of kabuki or martial arts, but what unites them is clarity. Being able to read a pose by the outline alone so it sticks in your brain. It gives the eye something to hold on to. Anime is, of course, its own thing, so it took all of these influences and visual traditions and made its DNA from it. Sometimes a little exaggerated and silly, but meaningful. So it's not just borrowing, it's building its own visual grammar that allows the anatomy of a pose to speak as shorthand. The Gainax pose is a perfect example of this. It's this rigid and powerful stance that's pretty much anime tradition at this point. When Simon hits it, you know he means business. The Gainax pose works because the squared structure opens the door to understanding these characters a little more, and there's a lesson there. Structure sets the stage to make the pose grounded, readable, and dynamic, but then it has to take the next step to become iconic by giving us a deeper look into a character, into their identity. The way a character stands, slouches, or stretches can say something about them that turns their pose into a signature. L is a good example here. Everything about him is baked into this weird pose, and if you pulled someone off the street and asked them to guess his personality off it, they probably wouldn't be too far off. The pose is weird because he's weird. Closed off, hyper-focused, antisocial. It's efficient visual storytelling that compresses L's identity into an instant. And the same idea works on a group level too, i.e. the Sasuke retrieval arc pose. This one's not about a single character, it's about 5 personalities and their roles in the group. Shikamaru's slouched and analytical, Naruto's leaning and confident, Kiba's relaxed and wild, Choji's grounded and steady, and Neji's hitting the baddie pose. The group feels diverse, and seeing the show up until that point, you know just how different these guys actually are. But it's still visually cohesive. They're a unit now on the same mission. See, that's the identity here through composition. Which brings us to the third ingredient, framing. The late Virgil Abloh says it best here.
If I put this candle in an all-white gallery space, it looks like a piece of art. If I put it on in a garage, it looks like a piece of trash. You know, like someone would throw it away. It's dented. And I think I often use this analogy in design. I could either design the candle and spend a lot of time like telling you about the candle, or I could just design the room that it sits in.
The piece about designing the room is just as relevant with poses. Context matters, because a pose doesn't exist in a vacuum, it's in a moment. with lighting, angles, colors, cuts, and sounds. That's the framing that can bring a pose to the next level into iconic territory. Now that can be visual framing, like the steam out of Luffy's Gear 2 pose, audio framing, like that shiny sound effect out of Goku's Super Saiyan pose, or camera framing, like the foreshortening technique in the Brave pose. It can even be emotional framing, like the narrative weight leading up to Spike's last bang. Anything that surrounds a pose and adds weight to it with meaning. You see, framing is the difference between a cool shot and an unforgettable one. And speaking of unforgettable, I know I can't make a video about anime poses without talking about the king of iconic ones. Araki's magnum opus, Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. The Jojo pose is a meme at this point, and for good reason. The whole visual identity of the series is built around them. Jojo's love affair with poses starts at the top, with Araki himself being an art and fashion obsessive. Jojo started with a Fist of the North Star-esque aesthetic, but as Araki develops his own style through parts 3 and 4, the influences of Renaissance and classical art and high fashion, like Vogue, became more and more obvious. And with that mix of inspirations came a never-ending series of iconic poses. Structurally, Jojo poses are super exaggerated, but somehow follow the anatomical logic we talked about. There's tension in the limbs and twists in the spines, like freaked out Greek statues. Even stronger than the structure, though, is the identity. The great Jojo poses are signatures that sell who they are without a word of dialogue. Sometimes it's simple, like Jotaro's poses being too cool for school, Dio's being super arrogant, but sometimes it's just a campy pose, almost to declare that characters in Jojo are larger than life and not normal. Then of course there's the framing, where Jojo always makes a point to make the pose a punchline to a moment. Weird camera angles, freeze frames, music drops, dramatic lighting, exploding kanji on the screen. It's kabuki, it's modeling, it's theatrics all rolled into one. Jojo damn near worships poses, and so does the internet. How memeable a pose is has become a bit of a litmus test these days. Almost like proof that the pose really is iconic. Obviously anime poses weren't built for memes, at least not initially, but it turns out they're a perfect fit for them. Because the same ingredients to a good pose happen to be the ingredients to a viral meme, especially identity, condensing a full personality or emotion into a hyper-readable snippet. And the meme culture can swoop in and do its thing to solidify or lobotomize the meaning, or sometimes both. And that process allows the poses to transcend anime and become accessible to other audiences. That's the beauty of memes and anime poses. They survive by mutating but never losing the thing that made them special in the first place. What I'm getting at here is this is a silly video about silly poses, but I think there's also something kind of beautiful here too. The way a great anime pose can fold time into a moment to be carried around by all of us is a testament to the level of connection these stories can have with us. Even years later, you might forget the exact plot or episode or dialogue, but you'll always remember that cool pose you saw and how you felt when you saw it. And that's anime for you. Thanks for watching.